Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. We continue to cover the death of former Senator Bob Dole. He died in his sleep, according to the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, at the age of 98 years old today. We want to bring in Live Now from Fox's own Andrew Kraft. Andrew, thanks for joining us right now on the phone. We want to talk here about, obviously, Bob Dole leaves behind a tremendous legacy as a lawmaker, as a huge force within the Republican Party and American politics.
Yeah, good morning, Matt. And, I wouldn't say this was, a surprise. A lot of lawmakers on the Hill, a lot of members who consider Bob Dole a mentor, and those who worked with him for so long on the Hill, they knew this was coming. 98 years old, but it's such a sad day for the country. The pride of Kansas, is gone after 79 years of public service. You heard there in the statement, and so I've just been, monitoring reaction from so many of his former colleagues. I just saw Senator Chuck Grassley comment that he was, his own mentor in the Senate as well. But if you think about Bob Dole's scope of public service, he served in World War II. There's not many World War II veterans left. He was gravely wounded in World War II to the point where he was debilitated his whole life because of that injury. And then he went on to serve in the House, and then 27 years in the Senate, and reaching the pinnacle of the Senate as Senate Majority Leader. And then trying his hand at presidential politics in 96 against Bill Clinton, ultimately, losing the presidency. But, any person who runs for that office, you go through such a roller coaster of emotions politically. You put your family through that. And, he didn't reach the pinnacle of American politics during the 96 election, but of course, that was after the rout in 94. Republicans took back Capitol Hill. Newt Gingrich was Speaker. And so many people will be remembering Bob Dole today. He was diagnosed, you'll remember, earlier this year with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, or lung cancer, I believe. I'm sorry. And so, a lot of people had been preparing for this. President Biden visited him in February. Of course, they served alongside each other in the Senate. So it is a very, very sad day. A lot of prominent public figures were losing this year in this last month of 2021.
No doubt, Andrew. And you mentioned something there about not being elected president, but certainly he did reach the pinnacle of American politics. I mean, Bob Dole was as well known as can be, as well known as it gets among politicians. I mean, known as a real statesman, especially there in the 90s when he was the majority leader of the Senate and then running for president. He was really synonymous with the Republican Party.
Yeah, and with the Republican Party that has changed so dramatically, since then. And so, the religious right, establishmentarian Republicans, they're very, very different now. And you'll remember that Senator Dole, did come out and endorse former President Trump back, I believe, in 2016. But I'm also remembering, though, just how amazing that the woman by his side for so long has been, through all of this, being her own political leader herself. And that, of course, is Elizabeth Dole, a former senator from North Carolina, former labor secretary, who has had a career in her own right. And, of course, they have led together the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, which supports, military heroes and caregivers and spouses. And that is a very, very well-known organization. But they really have been just a force in politics, those two together, as a partnership, as a couple in Republican politics. And so we send our condolences to Elizabeth Dole today as well. No doubt the foundation announcing his death this morning at the age of 98. I mean, you don't really have many prominent political leaders, who reach that age. I'm thinking of, Jimmy Carter just turned 97, and former President George H.W. Bush died at 94. And, I was seeing that clip of Bob Dole at 41's funeral, and when 41 was lying in the rotunda, and he, was in his wheelchair. He was facing the flag-draped casket in the rotunda, and with help, he stood up. He saluted the casket of H.W. Bush, his former colleague as well. And it was just really kind of emblematic of a generation that is almost no longer of these, elder statesmen, if you will, Matt.
Yeah, and speaking of elder statesmen and what, almost seems like a bygone era, or certainly one that we're on hiatus from. I mean, politics have really changed so much since Senator Dole was a member of the Senate. I mean, you mentioned it with the president visiting him. I mean, it seems like this is a passing that really will affect so many across party lines, because Senator Dole worked with people in a bipartisan way at a time when bipartisanship was really championed.
Oh yeah, I mean, this was, and we always, hindsight is 2020. A lot of people always gloss over. There were major issues with lots of disagreements on, but
true.
You're right, though. People harken back to that time of civility, bipartisanship, being able to reach across the aisle and get things done with someone you policy-wise vehemently disagree with, but at the end of the day, you can go have dinner with them and their families and get a drink with them after work. But it really is the greatest generation that not many are still around. And so I'll be interested to see how, former President Bill Clinton will no doubt issue a statement. But, they were fierce rivals. And Bob Dole wanted his job. He did not succeed to that. He wanted to be president himself. Clinton got a second term, but of course, Clinton will be no doubt putting out a statement. And of course, Bob Dole almost became vice president too, Matt.
Right.
In 76, Ford had reached out to him as his running mate when Nelson Rockefeller dropped off the ticket. And, we know how that ended. Ford lost to Carter, but so he has reached the pinnacle almost of these very, very high positions, but he is so renowned in the Senate. I mean, the work he did for the food stamp program, for the Americans with Disabilities Act. Of course, he suffered a disability most of his adult life after that really horrible injury he suffered serving our country in World War II. And so we're learning, Speaker Pelosi ordering flags at the Capitol, half-staff, at the White House, half-staff. And no doubt, I mean, America takes the time to remember its heroes and its statesmen. So I think going into this week, Matt, so many Americans will be remembering him, especially on Capitol Hill, and especially in Kansas, in Topeka.
Absolutely. And, we of course are thinking about that, about the lawmakers that are affected, the people who obviously look up to him and have modeled their own careers after him. But certainly there are so many people who've been helped by the Elizabeth Dole Foundation that as you said, he kind of course, inspired the need for that foundation, and that will be such a tremendous legacy.
Oh yeah, I mean, the reason so many, and maybe viewers don't know this, but the reason Bob Dole, I mean, he doesn't have use of his left hand because of this attack that left him injured in World War II. He survived that attack, but he lost the ability to, have his hand function like that, and he still maintained. Okay, that's why he was so outspoken on Americans with disabilities, on military issues, and so he had to live with that his entire life. It was a physical reminder of the price so many Americans have paid serving our country. And he, and like I said, not many World War II veterans left, but of course then he went on to a career in the House from Kansas and in the Senate from Kansas. And so the Kansas delegation, no doubt, will be remembering him as well in the Senate. And so we'll see about funeral plans. That hasn't been announced just yet, but I can imagine there will be something in Kansas and also on Capitol Hill as well. Absolutely.
I think you're right. I think we'll definitely see celebrations of his life there in Kansas and in Washington as well. And we'll be watching out for any developments, of course, announcements from the Dole Foundation on any of that. And, I think we're just seeing now some of these reactions come in that I know we, as you said, Andrew, were kind of expecting to see. Looks like we've got one here from Chuck Grassley. Yeah, Bob took me under his wing when I came to the Senate, and I couldn't have had a better senator to learn from. I think we'll be hearing a lot of that today, Andrew.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just saw a statement in from Mitt Romney saying that, Dole is from the greatest generation. There's not many who are. I know I keep saying that, but it's so true. There's not many that are left from the greatest generation who really prized public service, who found that as a calling, and who did it for their entire lives. I mean, you can think of, some of the old guards in the Senate right now. I'm thinking, McConnell and Schumer and Grassley and Leahy. That is few and far between these days. And so they'll be remembering their former colleague, Bob Dole, and the country will be remembering him on this Sunday as well. A World War II veteran, a master of the Senate, someone from, the plains of Kansas who have really, reached the heights of American political power and was so gracious at that. And so I'm glad I could have joined you guys on this Sunday.
Absolutely, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us and really being able to talk about this and give some insight into it. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. And we do want to continue to reflect here on former Senator Bob Dole's life. Again, learning today that he died at the age of 98 in his sleep, according to the Elizabeth Dole Foundation. Former Senator Dole, still, well into his 90s, was greeting veterans as they arrived to Washington, D.C. to look at monuments as part of honor flights. A champion for veterans, for people with disabilities, leaves behind just humongous legacy. We will continue to be following any developments, any statements that come out from so many people who were influenced by Senator Bob Dole, and continue to look at how the nation will remember and mark his life. But for now, we're going to go on a quick break. We'll have more Live Now from Fox in just a moment.